Tap In, Tap Out. I'm your host, Alex, and as always, in this podcast, we're talking about mental wellness, spirituality, and pop culture, and we're tapping out the patterns that no longer serve us. Amen. I said that a little wrong, but that's okay because you know what? It's episode 20, and I should know better. At this point, oh my gosh. Hi, guys. I'm here. I made it. How are y'all doing? Good to see y'all. Good to hear y'all because I'm obviously hearing y'all right now. Anyway, yeah, I'm. It's a day, and I'm here, and I love it here. I'm recording Halloween actually, so happy Halloween to those that celebrate. Um, I'm not particular about Halloween. I'll be honest with you. I don't do the scary. I say that like once a week now. I don't do the scary. And so y'all have fun. I will be inside as I have been. Um, yeah, I don't do the Halloween stuff, but I'll watch people be scared. Like I'll watch videos of people being scared. Like that's fine. But I don't like to be scared. I can watch someone else be scared because I know it's gonna come. Anyway, I'm getting to it. Once again, disclaimer for my voice. Let's address this now because it happens in person now where I'm like, does my voice sound different? And they're like either saying no or like yes, but it's fine. I'm like, but is it fine though? And so for context, those that are newer listeners, I frequently disclaim that my voice sounds weird. Once again, I feel like it sounds weird. And so I'm doing some work now, reflection work, and I'm thinking that it's actually more to do with just the weather changing, like I said, maybe in a past episode. And my voice is just having a time adjusting to it. So it's not that I'm having a bad day today. It's just that my voice is adjusting to a new climate. And that's okay. So I invite you guys to come on this journey with me as I explore my voice changing a little bit. Someone said that it sounds a little deeper. I'm like, I don't like it though. Like I just don't like it. So yeah, we're gonna see. Also, I guess just be a little vulnerable. It's a safe space at Tap In, Tap Out. Um, so during puberty, when me whispering during puberty, when my, when the voices change and the puberty happens, and some children just don't meet those marks. I am those children, and so my voice didn't really change the way that it was quote unquote supposed to. And so for a long time, probably even a little bit today, it's been an insecurity of mine. But over the past, I would say, I guess towards graduation of high school, like I learned to like accept it and it just became a big part of who I am. I love my voice now. It makes me unique. And so that's why I do a podcast today. People tell me they like my voice, and I'm like, thank you. And so I've grown to love my voice, but there is something for those few percent of the population of you know, those that missed some and I even in the discussion of missing certain marks, missing certain cues, right? That is in itself a little problematic. But anyway, I don't get into that today. But what I'm trying to say is that when you don't really feel like you hit the mark that you should have, puberty wise, for me, every like 3 to 4 years, let's say it's a cold day or like I'm under the weather or something, and your voice is a little different, you wonder like, is it happening now? Because some people have puberty really late, right? Like the growth spurts and the weight, whatever happens for you during puberty, like um when you don't really get that, like, ooh, puberty has hit me. Years after, I still question like when these things come around and my voice is like, questionable. I'm like, is it time now? Like, I guess I don't. But now I'm in a place I don't want to be time. Like I'm fine. I accepted my voice. I've accepted it. I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm actually very happy with what I have. And so I think that is my fear when my voice feels like it's changing because I just don't want, I'm okay now. I'm okay. I don't need it. And so I'm thinking it's just a little, cold weather shift. But I guess you'll be updated as I record the podcast because I need my voice to record it. And so here we are. Other than that, I'm doing okay. I might have mentioned this in the newsletter blog last week or in the past weeks, but I've been a lot more sensitive lately than usual. I think just the nature of like what I'm doing in school and just the time of my life right now, I'm very sensitive, you know? And so certain things will like affect me in deeper ways. And so for example, anyway, the episode topic for this week revolves around Insecure, which we're gonna get to, the TV show. But it's my favorite TV show of all time. And so I'm very emotional because it's ending. Besides that, this past month, I've been working on this research presentation project for school on therapy for the aging population. And so that's 65, 60 plus. And so I'm just like, to constantly be looking at research on like old people and like looking up videos and papers and like, it's just like, I'm very sensitive because it's just like so, I don't know, it's so sweet. And I'm just like, oh, imagine just like, I would look up a lot of like group therapy videos for elderly people, really random tangent. But they have groups called reminiscence groups or reminiscent group therapy. And so it's helpful for like Alzheimer's, dementia, even depressive symptoms, like just having people in a circle, in a space together, reminisce about their life they've had and just how like it's had so many benefits for people who are above 60, 65. Um, and I'm just like, I have to present, I think tomorrow. Yeah. And I just listened to this, it already happened. But I'm just like, oh, it's just so precious. Like, so I've just been very sensitive lately, just thinking about all of the things and a lot of seeing, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a really touchy time for me right now. Maybe, and it's also just the fall, I think, is a lot more sensitive than the summer because I feel like the summer, you're more out there mentally. For me, I'm like, okay, summer, I'm out here, blah, blah, blah. And then the fall is like when you come inside and you're inside yourself more, right? And so, like, I think it's probably just a seasonal thing too, but I'm just like, mm. I don't know. It's just a lot, but it's good. It's a good a lot. Having a great time. So, yeah, I don't have any music to talk about. Let's get into it because I don't want to stall anymore. So music. I don't have music to talk about this week. I tried looking, but nothing sparks me enough to want to talk about. The only thing I'll say, and I don't even have the date for it because I'm so unprepared, but Summer Walker's album is coming out in November. I don't know when, but it's coming. So when it comes out, I'll give it a listen. And I may have thoughts, may not. I might save those thoughts for the Patreon. You should go join the Patreon if you haven't. I have lots of things planned for November in there, so go have fun. I did want to talk about this news I heard last week about Facebook. Again, this is not the place you go for news. And by this place, I mean Tap and Tap Out podcast. This is the place where you find out things you need to Google. So you should go Google this thing that I'm going to talk about because I don't have the facts in front of me. But Mark Zuckerberg is changing the name and the company, I guess, changing the name from Facebook to Meta, referring to metaverse, and specifically the goal. I think I read one article and I skimmed, so please be patient with me. But for my understanding, the goal is to move from a place of just social media accounts and people looking at your life to actually moving towards a deeper experience of virtual social interaction. And so they're trying to change the name to pave the way for development that's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. Basically, we're going to be Sims, y'all. Like, I didn't watch the video. I saw some screenshots, but Mark Zuckerberg was like a sim character talking to us. And, you know, I think they previewed like having your own virtual house and a virtual like neighborhood and just being able to be with people virtually. And so even like for remote work, if you don't see your coworkers in person, you can have a virtual like 3D office space and have office time together and talk to each other and call each other. So for my anime fans, I won't get too much into this, but I watched Sword Art Online, SAO. And if you guys know what that show was about, I watched it when I was really young. But basically, is this show where some company gave children, well, the population, this new game where you put a headset on and you play this game, and it's virtual, but it's like 3D. You get to like, whatever. And basically, it was a trap, and they got trapped in the game. And if you died in the game, you died in real life. I shouldn't be sparking this hysteria on this podcast today. But the first thing I thought about when I saw this commercial was Sword Art Online, and I'm like, it's interesting conversation because I personally am actually a very tech interested person, even though I don't have a lot of cool stuff. I do like hearing about like tech advancements and things like that, and it's fascinating to me. Would I have been the one to pick up the game and put it on my head? Yes. I'm not the kind of person that's like, ooh, I'm not touching that, Like, I'm definitely have a curiosity where I'm gonna put the game on. And when I get caught in it, in the show, they had people who you couldn't leave until you beat the game, basically. Or so I think 1% to beat the game. And so people who didn't want to beat the game stayed in like a safe town. And so I always have said, I will be setting up shop in that safe town. I'll have a bakery. The warriors will be fed, okay? Y'all will not miss a meal because I will be in that safe town feeding y'all as y'all go and fight these bosses and get us out of this game because it's not gonna be me. You gotta know your place. And so, will I be indulging in meta technology in the future? I don't know. Will we have access to that readily? Probably not. It's probably gonna be a little classist in who gets access to it, and that's okay. That's the world we live in. However, I can't deny that I'm interested in being a Sims character and saying hi to y'all in the neighborhood on Sims in real life, but in fake life, The only thing I've been thinking about recently about this, like mental health wise though, is because there's a lot of different opinions about social media intersecting with mental health and communication style and how being social on social media doesn't always equate to feeling like you have social support in your real life. And so I'm wondering if this is just going to be an extension of social media, or is it going to be something different for us psychologically. And I don't have the research to answer that right now. But I'm interested because in an optimistic sense, thinking about even like back to access, right, and disability and the ability to meet people virtually and communicate in more deeper, I guess, virtually embodied ways, how will that affect our perceived sense of social support, like I said, right? And community, because there's research that says certain skills that we think should transfer between technology and our like motor skills really don't transfer. They just create separate skills in itself. And so, for example, like a child who plays with a building blocks app on their phone won't be more prepared to practice with building blocks in real life. They just have building block skills for the app. And then the building block skills they will have in person are still what you would have developed in person. So they don't kind of like stack on each other in terms of skill building. So I wonder, being social is practicing social, what's the word I want to use? Yeah, there's like social skills training, right? Group therapy does some social skills training for certain populations. And so I'm wondering if social skills training in a virtual sense, in this, I keep saying Sims, but that's really what I think about. In a Sims world that's more embodied because we're like walking around and like I think it's like VR technology. So it's like on our eyes, we're walking around, we're the person, but we're the virtual person, right? Will that translate into a real life social skills building, and in that way will that build to feeling more connected to people, right? I think obviously, not obviously because I'm conspiracy theorist, but I'm not sure if Facebook/Meta has our best interests at heart with these kinds of things. They're trying to make money, right? But in an optimistic sense, I'm just wondering, what are the possible benefits of this, but what are the obvious drawbacks as well? So I guess as we learn more, I will keep you guys loosely updated because, again, these facts were based on a one-page article that I read 2.5 days ago. So, yeah, stay tuned for that, I guess. But I'm interested. I would definitely say I'm interested to learn more about this because, yes, that's all I will say. Okay, let's get into this episode today. Last episode was titled Same Devils. It was a Black Love Journal episode where I audio journaled about my experience with publishing my first guided journal. Link will be down below again for the inherent self-promotion. But yeah, it was really a conversation. Got some really awesome feedback from you guys. I was really appreciative of that. I love talking about that. I felt so much more lighter after. Um, and I just hope that after these journaling sessions, you guys are encouraged to do your own journaling, with or without a guided journal, like just in your own journal life, because um, I honestly don't do a lot of guided journaling, but it's because I'm trying to focus on more open-ended journaling, seeing what comes up as I write. But for those that are inspired, need to be inspired to journal, definitely go back to those Black Love Journal sessions for inspiration. So this week for the tap in, we're talking about Insecure, like I said, my favorite TV show of all time. And so we're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, this is very chaotic. I'll just be honest, this is very chaotic, the first 15 minutes of this. I promise you, I have some structure planned for this episode. But y'all know how I go, and this intro is always a mess. And so, anyway, I'll take a quick break. When we get back, we will be doing some Insecure talk. I'll see you there. It is now time for the tap in. This week, like I mentioned, we are talking about Insecure. It's season 5, our last season of Insecure, and I am fully in my feelings. And so I mentioned my like research for the elderly. I mentioned just being sensitive in general, but this Insecure thing has really been getting to me, and it didn't start until I started the first episode because I watched the previews that people posted and I was like, all right, like I'm ready emotionally, I'm there, it's time. I definitely feel like this show is like has told a complete story, and so I was like, I'll be good. I turned on episode 1 last week. I was a mess the whole time. Like I wasn't crying physically, but inside I was tearing up almost every scene, just like seeing each character. And I didn't rewatch any episodes at least prior to that premiere, and so I wanted to kind of see how it would feel stepping into this after I guess it's been a couple months, maybe a year. And so I just remember just how important this show is to me, and truly objectively this is my favorite show of all time. I think just like the time it came in my life, I was like, more of a consumer of culture than previous. I feel like when you're a child, you kind of just watch what's in front of you. And I feel like when you're in your late teens, into your 20s, you have a more intentional way of taking in culture. Like, and it's obvious now because certain people will not know certain artists exist. And I'm like, how is it possible? Like, she is my life or he is my life. But it's crazy because at a certain point in our lives, we divest and interest ourselves in the culture that we want to interest ourselves in. And so for me, that was Insecure. When it came out, I was there day one. And it was beautiful and amazing then, but it's evolved so much as I've grown up as a person. And so I am just really blown away by just the growth the past 5 to 6 years in the characters, in the writing. It has always been bomb. Um, and just the reflection of that in my life as a person. I am just so indebted to Issa Rae and her team. I am just like, this is my favorite thing ever, and I could talk about it forever. And so I definitely feel like I had to do an episode on the podcast, just kind of honoring this show in my life and in the culture, because in terms of Black television, I mean, we've seen decades of evolution, but I think this is really a show at its core about friendship, and two friends trying to work it out together, Issa and Molly. And yes, they like juggle men and break up and make up and do things and have sex and all these different things, but really at its core, it's about two friends doing life together and two Black women friends doing life together. It's just a beautiful thing, and it's more than enough for a TV show for 5 seasons, and I'm just blown away for the chance we've had to just see these people do it. So just shout out to Yvonne Orji, who plays Molly. Shout out to Issa Rae, who plays Issa. They've been my life these past 5 years. I have friends who we recap it every single week. We're like voice notes and voice messages, talk about every single thing that goes on and like breaking down the episodes in our own personal lives. And so, I'm emotional. I'm holding it together. Anyway, this episode, I wanted to talk about friendship and mental health in friendships. And before I get there, I guess to start off, I was just gonna talk about my favorite scene in all of the series, which it wasn't hard to pick because as soon as the scene happened, I was like, this is like my scene, right? And I feel like other great scenes have happened, great episodes have happened that are much more explosive and like definitely exciting and funny. But since this scene happened in season 1, it's been my favorite scene of the whole series, and I would go back and find it. I wish on YouTube, sometimes people clip the episodes. I wish it was a well enough known scene that I could just type it in. I try it sometimes, and no one has done it yet. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I should be the one to start this. I feel like this scene is so important to the show, but it gets kind of just not talked about enough. So anyway, I'm gonna get to what it is. But special mention goes out to the Coachella episode because that was probably the funniest thing I've seen ever. Like it was just Kelly, who was another character on the show. Kelly is kind of the comedic relief, which I actually will get to in a little bit. But Kelly's the comedic relief of the group. And then also Tiffany being what people see as like the bougie, AKA, I won't get into that because that's not today's topic. But bougie kind of like high maintenance kind of person. And so Issa, Molly, Kelly, and Tiffany make this group of 4. And so Issa and Lawrence at the art show, that was in the pandemic too, which was just so beautiful because it was hard for all of us to be inside so long. And I think Insecure being out that time just gave us something to like look forward to and love in that moment. And I'll never forget Issa and Lawrence walking through the art show, reconnecting, and beautiful work, beautiful gowns. Anyway, before I get into my favorite scene, Kelly just reminded me of something. So special shout out to Kelly this season 5, because if you guys just look up like on YouTube Kelly's best moments or something, I'm sure you got like 1,000 videos on it. But like Kelly's really been the comedic relief of this entire series, and she does it really well. Natasha Rothwell, kudos to you. But we see in this season, as we wrap up the show, Kelly is going through a bit of a crisis because she's like realizing how people perceive her and how she has been denied a lot of nuance in her life and depth because of her being like this class clown into this funny friend role that she has done so well. But as we wrap up the show, it's almost like the writers are kind of saying like, almost telling on itself in terms of like who really is Kelly, right? Who does she want to be? And has she been what she's wanted to be? And I think we get to explore that now this final season. And I'm so happy that, because I think people have really probably, I talked about it to my friends, and I feel people have probably wrote into the show saying that Kelly needs more to her character. So I'm happy they're giving that to her. And for those funny friends in our lives, like, are we thinking about the role they actually want to have more than just being the one that cracks the jokes, And so even in Kelly's podcast during the episode, what is it? Prinny's Preguntas. I've been dying all week about that. But one of the questions she asks in her ending podcast monologue last week is like, if you knew your life was gonna end, what would you do with it, right? What's your legacy? And I think it's just such a good way of using Kelly as a way to talk about her character, but also the show and its legacy, and reflect it back to us and our lives and our legacy as people, right? And it really makes me think because um, life will end, right? It's not just that it may end or it may end sooner, may end later. Like life is going to end, and so how are you thinking about the impact you have and the legacy you have, and really not to overanalyze it, but I've always thought about legacies being in other people that we leave with, right? And that we do life with, right? Like, yes, you can have donated so much money or whatever charitable action, but really our legacy is in the lives around us, you know, how we change people and how people change us. And history really is found in each other. And so that's why I'm so committed to talking about relationships and friendship and community and love, because that's what matters to me, you know, and I'm really getting really getting in there. But that's why I love this show so much, is because really the legacy that we build is in each other. And I just love that the show is able to grow. And it's crazy how characters in season 1 were against each other or flipped. Because, you know, initially Issa cheats on Lawrence, her longtime boyfriend. But then you see in season 3 and 4, now we have Lawrence begging after Issa, and it's like, how'd that happen, right? But in life, it's like that. Like, this show is so long and it expands so many years that we're able to see friendships turn over and turn around and reverse in a way that is so natural to real life. And so I've just loved the show to death. And so speaking of why I love the show to death, my favorite scene of the show, I will not keep you guys waiting any longer. So this is season 1, the finale, episode 8. And for context, I actually had to go and rewatch the episode prior to this episode and also the actual episode to remind myself of why. Because again, I cannot find it, just the clip itself. Anyway, so I was forced to watch the whole episode again. Forced or whatever. So, I forgot this even happened strongly. But, so a big part of Molly's arc in the show is the fact that she sees a therapist, right? And it's based on this referral from like an old college friend she has, who basically is like, girl, like, I love therapy. I've been having a good time. If you want to try it, let me know. You know, therapy is the best thing ever. And Molly goes to Issa, and she's like, girl, I think her name is Crystal. I just talked to Crystal, and she told me, you know, consider therapy, or not even consider therapy, but that therapy was good for her. And Molly was kind of laughing at Crystal for going to therapy and enjoying it. And as the friend Issa is, she lets some space pass, but then she's like, you know, but what if you did go to therapy, basically, right? And Molly, being who Molly was at the time, takes an immense offense. And with Molly will take offense at something in the moment, but it will sit with her the whole day, the whole week, the whole month. And so even though she took it poorly, even after, during, like, it was during a fundraiser event Issa was putting on, and so during some small talk conversations and stuff, her whole demeanor had changed. This is Molly to a T. Her whole demeanor changed. She had a guy come up to her and try to hit on her, or, you know, do a little flirting, and she would turn him down. Like, Molly will let one thing disrupt her entire life. And so I didn't realize that was the moment that Issa and Molly had their first real kind of friendship hiccup, right? And it's funny because I initially thought, I don't know what I thought it was, but I didn't realize it was a therapy question that really got Molly upset in the season 1. And I do remember the big fight they had after the fundraiser, which leads to this scene. So in the next episode, in the finale, I think it's Kelly's birthday, and Kelly wants to take the girls to Malibu. It's like an Airbnb. So they go to Malibu, and essentially, Issa has revealed to Lawrence that she cheated, and Lawrence is kind of icing her out for the weekend, figure things out, and but her and Molly also aren't really on good terms anymore because of that fight. And so they still go to support Kelly in this birthday, so they try to have fun regardless. And Lawrence ends up calling Issa to want to talk soon, basically. And so this is also the party or the situation or the event where the other girls find out that you know, Lawrence found out what happened. And so Tiffany and Kelly are taking it lightly and they're kind of laughing it off. And then they're laughing at Molly because Molly was very scandalous during the weekend, birthday weekend. So they're laughing at Molly and how she thinks she's like a new woman, but she's just old Molly. And it's just a lot of things that are going on. A lot of, what's the word I want to use? A lot of, I don't say miscommunication, but like, they weren't fully present in what Molly recently needed in that moment. And so, a lot of tension was building. And so Issa's like, I need to see Lawrence. And she asked someone to take her to drive her back to LA to see him. And they're like, no, I think it's LA. Anyway, whatever. The dunes, if y'all know. And so they don't want to take her. And so Molly puts herself aside and tells Issa, let's go. I'm gonna drive you to Lawrence. And so it's on this drive home in which my favorite scene takes place, because here you have a friendship that is on the rocks and they're not quite sure where they stand with each other. And Molly offers to help Issa figure out what she's going to say to Lawrence when she gets there. And so Issa uses as a chance, as she's talking to quote unquote Lawrence, aka Molly, she's kind of getting into more like specific things to do with Molly more than Lawrence, almost using this opportunity to kind of apologize to Molly, open up the conversation. And so in that moment, Molly acknowledges that she's a mess, and she kind of fesses up to the fact that really she might need therapy, right? And it wasn't fair of her to like displace that energy or that anger onto Issa when really she's angry with herself. And that she really can't, quote unquote, keep a man, and this whole thing about Molly's character. Um, and my favorite line is when Issa says, I'm gonna be here while you figure it out. And I'm just like, when I heard that, I definitely started crying in 2016. That was, I guess. I was crying. I was just like, that's friendship to me. And I think even at that time, I was learning what friendship even meant to me, right? And how are we willing to see people past who they are, in that moment, and seeing the best in them. And I just love the show, like I said. And again, to honor the show, I had this idea. And so I'm bringing on a guest in a few minutes to talk to me about our friendship as a way to honor the show, and also just to talk more about friendship in more applicable ways, because I feel like it's one thing to talk about hypothetical friendships, but like I just as I want to bring in my best friend to talk about this. And so you guys know her as Kris. She is the founder of Reawakening Love, which is a Instagram page that focuses on faith and journaling and fashion for women. Please check it out. Me and Kris actually did Instagram live together this past weekend on Friday, where we talked about forgiveness, because she's been doing a series on forgiveness on her page over the past few weeks. And so for the finale, we did a conversation about forgiveness and how to handle a friendship hiccup, and even a breakup at times. And so that was really awesome. And I was watching Insecure, and I was like, you gonna come on my podcast and talk to me? And so it's about 20-ish minutes. And so I'm gonna just segue into that. And then when I get back from that, we will just sum it up for the tap in this week and get to the tap out later. So please enjoy my little quick talk with Kris. Like I mentioned, I wanted to bring somebody on who reflects, I don't know, just great friendship in my life as we think about Insecure and the show ending and what it means to me, what it means to the world. I thought it'd be cool to talk friendship with somebody who I can relate that with. And so you guys know her from past tap and tap out things. It's my beautiful friend Kris. Hi, Kris.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone.
How are you doing? Besides us struggling with our sickness and our throats.
um, Still here, still alive.
Yes. If you guys tuned in or want to tune in, we did a live together on Kris's page on Instagram, Reawakening Love. It will be in the description where you can find all of that. But today we're talking about navigating friendship, especially as seasons come and we change as people. Definitely, it's funny because as I watch Insecure, and like Kris isn't really again a strong avid watcher, but I think you've done some like little background research here and there, so you're not like just out of the blue. But I think there are definitely parallels in the way that we've been able to bounce back from situations. If you guys want a more in-depth talk of what that looked like for us, we did that on Friday. So it's tea's already spilled. Okay, so you can go back and listen to that. It was about an hour and it was really good conversation. But like I said, in honor of Insecure, I wanted to kind of just chop it up about friendship and stuff and see where we're at with that. And so to start, I wanted to ask you, what is one word you would use to describe our friendship? Doesn't have to be the word, but just a word you would use.
Right. I think it always changes in seasons, but I think right now the word that comes to mind is self-awareness.
Why self-awareness?
So I chose self-awareness because I think that we both have been on individual journeys where we're more self-aware of what we want in friendships, what we want in life. And so with that in mind of how we feel in our own lives, that also has been a factor in how we navigate our friendship today, of having self-awareness of how to love one another better, how to communicate better, or whatever that may be. I think there's self-awareness in our lives individually and together, which I really love.
I would agree. I'd use that word too, I guess. I didn't really have a word because I didn't. It wasn't my question, but I think definitely self-awareness, being one of the fruits of our friendship is so important. And like I say this all the time, but like we need people in our lives to see us, and see our blind spots and see where we need to be better people. And sometimes in situations that might bring up conflict, like a lot of that can come from someone being self-aware for you in a way that you're not ready to accept yet. And I think that I've been in places where that's happened with you. Like I'll be talking about something, like some situation I'm having, and you'd be like, have you thought about this? Or doesn't this remind you about that? And I'm like, are you trying to identify a pattern in my life, man? Like, but you need that, right? And something that we talk about a lot is just this idea of like an emotional budget or like a bank account, and so like if you only have $5 in my account, you can't take out 10, and so like in a self-awareness aspect is like, for you to be able to do that for me, you would need to have some amount of money in my account, about 100. So when you want to take out and withdraw that $20 to let me know something about myself that I maybe not be aware of, it works, right? But if we were just like willy-nilly kind of friends and it was only like a $10 account, and for you to have to call me out would take out about 30, it's overdrawn. And so I'm taking offense and I'm like, I don't, but because I think we do a good job of building each other's accounts up outside of conflict, and we can get into that, I guess, maybe right now, but like ways that we make sure that we're checking on each other, and that non-need based reciprocity, I think, is what really makes our friendship shine, because it's not just out of like, I need this, or I need that, or I need to talk about this, I need to talk about that. Like we find different levels to reach each other. So I guess, yeah, I think we mentioned this even on our live on Friday, but maybe we can talk about this some more. But just the idea that like friendships can exist on different levels of communication. So sometimes it's going to be a meme here or there. Other times it might be a check-in FaceTime, right? But if one of them is out of balance, how does that kind of affect the relationship,
I think that there's an equal balance of communication of like, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to check up on you by like on Instagram by a story or a meme. That doesn't build intimacy in a friendship. That doesn't, yes, maybe that was some effort, right? But did I really check in on you by like sending a meme? Like that, it's not the same equivalence, and the fruit that comes out of if we had a FaceTime call and I asked you, how was life? How's grad school? How are you doing spiritually? And I think sometimes people can think that you receive the same fruit of from like a FaceTime call and meeting up like that from sending a meme.
Mm.
That's not the same intimacy that you're gonna get, and you can't have the expectation of, yes, oh, we're still in communication, we're friends, we're, catching up each other's lives and, being a part of each other's lives. You can't have that mentality if you are just sending memes all the time and have the expectation that person's always going to be there for you or show up for you when you haven't really truly made an effort beyond that I don't think people get, because that is okay, communication, but really, what is your friendship outside of that on just Instagram? Like, do you actually, take the time to call? Do you spend time with them? Like, there's so much more than just like specific means of communication that we think suffice when they actually don't, and in the long run don't sustain a friendship.
Mm. Exactly. I like how you mentioned this intimacy, and this like need for it because it's actually pretty uh aligned with how we develop as people in our age group, especially this like need for intimacy. And if you're not meeting those needs, how you can feel isolated in your life. Um, and I'm wondering for you, I can answer first, I guess, but I feel like what I look for in friendships now is way different than what I looked for in friendships maybe 5, 10 years ago. And I feel like I maybe said this even on the live last week, but in childhood you like kind of fall into friendship, like you guys both wear the same color shirt and you're like, ooh, like I like you, or you're on the playground and you just happen to play together for a few minutes and then you're best friends for the next 7, 8 years. And so now in my life, I think when it comes to that need for intimacy in my life, it has to come from a place of intentionality because
Mm-hmm.
our lives are so much more structured and uh yeah, just so much more structured that if I need you to show up, it's like I need you to show up. It's not just like uh we don't have these routine places of like, oh, we'll see each other on the playground today, so I don't need to talk to you in the morning. Like there's the routine so built into our lifestyles that we have to make time for each other intentionally. And so I'm wondering, like for you, um, what do you look for in friendships in your young adult life that you hadn't really looked for or you need to look for in your younger life?
Right. I do want to clarify about the whole memes thing. It's okay to send memes to your friends if that's what you do,
Yes,
but if that's the
yes.
only form of communication towards somebody in your friendship, I don't think that should just be the only outlet to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to
I
clarify.
agree.
But what I look for now is intentional effort. So I say that because I'll give an example for you and me, right? So Alex and I met in college, and it was very easy for us to meet up, to go on walks, to have lunch or dinner together because of the environment that we were in. In college, Alex and I lived in the same building, and we were just one floor
We
away, right?
did. Oh my gosh.
It's so cute. Our story is just the cutest. But other than living in the same building, we were in the same organization, and we were just around each other in ways because of factors in our lives, such as that. And when you take that away, like taking away the environment that we're in from college and the same dorm room, and even not in the same organization anymore because we've graduated, can you make the intentional effort outside of those factors that were once, helpful when you were able to be around each other? And so for me, if I'm not in the same town as somebody, I would hope that there's still intentional effort, even despite distance, to still check in, to still call, to still even make time to like have a drive, meet up somewhere, and have intentional effort in that way.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that because when we first met each other, we weren't living in the same dorm.
No.
And so I forget how that definitely helped us build that connectivity with each other. Just like I was on like the ninth floor, you're on like the eighth floor, and so we just come in and
Mhm.
out, and like you were just like there. Um, and it can be so hard, and I want to give, I guess, some grace for people who maybe had some friendships that didn't last after college or after high school, and you're kind of just like, what did I do? But I think we do underestimate just the power of that how that routine and those same environments played a part in our friendships. It's not a reflection sometimes of you. It's just a reflection of the relationship. And I think that I talked about with you last
Mhm.
night was just how we share the responsibility of our friendship. It's not that I have this list and I brought it to you. I'm like, Kris, we need to do X, Y, and Z to make sure we're good friends. Like naturally, because we're invested in each other, and something that I will talk about probably for the rest of the month is this thing I heard from Stephanie Ike, in the same room. But she said, whoever's around you should speak to the highest version of yourself. And in that, that declares this commitment to wanting to see that. Like you're not gonna see that highest version of yourself or your friend um just because it requires a commitment from that person to want to see that in you and come along for the ride, like this ride or die culture, like that's kind of what it's pulling on. And so sometimes, because we are so comfortable in our environment, we don't even think that we need to do something like that. And it's not until stuff happens where you realize that you need to exist and commit to your friendships outside of what's natural. And I think that conflict is a great way of doing that. And um I won't mention too much about our situation, but in Insecure, for example, on the first episode of the season for this last season, there was an incident where Issa and Molly are kind of figuring things out. They're like fake back for their real back, as the show said. And so like conflict happens where they get robbed together. and and you see this automatic like, oh, like I think someone even mentioned like, Molly immediately like put her hand next to Issa, like making sure she was good. And so even though they've been kind of like on eggshells, you can see how conflict, and when I say conflict, I mean like an external stimulus, something that kind of just pushes you
Mhm.
together, reminds you about what's really important. And it almost shakes you out of that environment of like, because they were at this like college reunion, and that couldn't be more nostalgic. And I think for us, before we graduated, because I think at that point we weren't living in the same area and we were experiencing some eggshell situation. And I think there was some outside thing that happened that affected both of us directly um, in the new year. And I think that for me, it shook me, and it in a way that was like, who's really important in my life? Who do I want to stick by and stand by and support? And who needs that from me? And I say, not to say I'm declaring that you need my support, but me understanding just how specific our needs are and we're in that moment, and how like, why wouldn't I step over these eggshells to ride in this with you? And how I think that intentionality before our graduation really set us in motion to have a solid friendship after. I don't know if you would agree, but or have thoughts on that. But yeah.
I do agree. And so I don't know if I told you this, but so for the past 3.5 years that we're in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
I I saw you in a role of ministry, and that was it, right?
Mm.
And I never saw you beyond what does Alex look like after graduation? Was he look like, achieving his dreams and going into career and feel like he wants, and just creatively your aspirations to be a little light in this world. you know, I think that the situation that we are both a part of and some factor that brought us together really made me look at you in a different light of like, okay, what does future Alex look like and how can I support him and see that growth too, and not just in the present? Because I think when we were in college, we were so fixated on the present of like ministry and school and all that type of stuff that I think it was actually beauty in disguise to see that like there's other parts of you that are amazing, and
Mm.
it made me excited to be on that journey with you to see you further in life.
Wow, I am not gonna get emotional. That was really sweet. And I think that's another big part of friendship, and even the potential of future friendships is just understanding like seeing the future in people and not limiting them to what you need from them. I think a lot of
Mhm.
friendships that I've lost are with people who only acknowledge me for what they needed from me. And so when I begin to grow
Mm,
outside of that or want to be somebody else, they lose interest. And it's like maybe not a reflection of that person's character, but or with my character, but just like what they're looking for in a friendship, right? And so not everybody is looking for more than you are in that moment. And that's I guess okay. Because some people are fine with that, you know? Like in a work relationship, I probably only want an employee for what they signed up to do. And so they can meet
mhm,
that need. If they want to surprise me, beautiful. But you hire somebody just on like what you require of them. And so they can work that job for 10 years and they're still meeting those needs in that relationship. Right. But for a friendship in my life, a personal friendship, it's become more than that for me, right? Like I don't just want to partner with who you are today. I want to partner with who you don't even know you want to be in the future, you know? And if and there's situations where that happens and they're becoming somebody I don't agree with. And so what do you do with that? You know, I think it's a hard conversation to have with yourself and with the person, but it's okay to understand and accept that people change. It's just acting accordingly, you know? And so I
mhm.
think that for me at its core, in terms of how we survive friendship, which sounds kind of like intense, but how we move through our seasons is, you know, loving someone past who they are in front of you, you know,
Yes,
and loving someone in their low moments and in their high moments. And some people, I think, look forward to riding the highs, but they don't expect to ride the lows as well, you know? Um, I don't know if you have thoughts on that because I feel like that's something we talk about sometimes.
absolutely. And I think going back to um, the previous just statement that you said, something that came to mind is that, you know, when I look at you, I respect your past and I love your present and I encourage for your future. You
Right.
know, and I think people only see one version of somebody and expect them to be that for the rest of their lives. And, but yet we're always going to be growing as people. And so we're also going to be changing as people. And sometimes people don't want to change or don't want to also go on that track of growth. And that's also okay because it kind of weeds out, okay, who are the people who want to be in that circle around me, who want to uplift, encourage me, and to see me grow and blossom in a beautiful manner to my highest self, right? And going back to like you mentioned highs and lows, I we talked about this many times, and I think in the lowest moments of life and within friendships with people are really testing grounds to see if your friendship is going to sustain or to even have a self reflection of how can I do better and or how the other person can be how can I do better because I think we've mentioned before reconciliation, you know, there's a shared responsibility in that to want to do better to each other, not just in the moment, but as you set that up for the future means. Because the things that we go through now also are lessons that set us up for the future, I guess, conflict or occurrences that life will bring
Mm,
because we are
yeah.
not going to just weather storms in this moment. There's still storms coming as we continue to grow in life, and we can't expect that there's not going to be anything else that's going to come in the future to try to destroy a friendship because life is going to happen. And so, how do you handle things now that also prepare you? It's like preparation
Mm,
for what is to come too. That also needs to be acknowledged and needs to be a thing that you go through in a friendship, so that when you face another thing, you can be like, oh well, we've been able to get through this, and we've been able to sort this out in some way. Maybe it's not the same way, but you still have some knowledge of how to navigate yourself in that.
right. I love that. And I think that just tying it back to the show, I think that's why I feel, even as a viewer, secure in what's going to happen this season because we've seen Issa and Molly handle things before. And
Mhm.
we've seen patterns of distrust or I guess mistrust and patterns of toxicity in the friendship. But at the same time, like we've seen them come together and be so good for each other and good with each other. And so I'm really excited for how the season's gonna end. And it's making me really reflective on my own friendships, you know, because Insecure's ending. My friendships are not. And so I want to thank you, Kris, for coming on for a few minutes and chopping up with me. This is definitely like my own therapy right now as I work through kind of what it means for me to have intimate, loving people around me. And yeah, thank you. You're amazing.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be here.
It is now time for the small business shout out. This week we are talking about fashion and mental health awareness, which is two of my favorite things. Well, one of them for sure. The other one is a work in progress. But that's okay. Anyway, APTC3, they're a company that was created to raise awareness towards suicide prevention and help those who are silently suffering. And so they have really creative clothing captions and things. I won't spoil it because I think it was really fun when I discovered them and I was like, oh, all right, I want one of these. And so please look it up. Centered around therapy, mental health, suicide prevention, all these different things. And I just love how bold it is and what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do. And so they have new drops and it's awesome. I love going through the Instagram and scrolling through the pictures and stuff and seeing what they do. So their website, Instagram will be down below. Check it out if you guys want some new clothing geared towards mental health. And support small businesses where you can. Period. It's time for the tap out, and this week I had a topic, and I'm like, do I talk about this still? Because I try to plan the tap out and tap in a little bit before I record, at least more than a day before, just so if it isn't working for me still, I can sit with it and change it or whatever. So I think I'm gonna still go with this one because I probably have a lot more to talk about in the later episodes, so might as well say this now. Anyway, the tap out. If you guys are just clueless right now, the tap out is our segment where we talk about something that we need to get out of doing. So like a bad habit, toxic trait, junk food, anything of the sort. So for this week, I put down being less filtered. And there are 1,000 caveats to this, obviously, because as you know me, I have a lot of caveats to everything. And so specifically with being less filtered, I have a hard time with this for a lot of reasons. But I think that I'm talking specifically about, in person, as in like not virtual relationships, but more like real world, physical relationships, social spaces, people that I've met in person, friends that I've had, family members, people that I know, right? I think this works a lot different if you're thinking about like parasocial influencer relationships. It's a little bit different. A lot different. I think filters, there's a natural filter on that because who I give to people online is not who I fully am, right? Like it's a package, it's content creation. I'm creating content. So it has to, in a lot of ways, be a caricature of who I am. And so I don't limit myself to say that because I am, most of who I am on social media is who I actually am. But in a way, it's curated. And so naturally, for my own mental health, I understand that who I present myself to be on social media might be a very realistic picture of who I am as a person in real life, but it's still in a way catered for consumption purposes. And so with that being said, being less filtered, I think overall we need filters sometimes. And especially if you're thinking of certain cultures, certain work dynamics, right? And like the way that I talk to my boss is different than the way I talk to my coworkers. There's a filter I have when a boss asks me a question to be quote unquote honest. I'll have a filter. Because at the end of the day, there's more about our relationship than just the fact that you ask me a question and you require the honesty from me. Because I'm thinking about what that means for our relationship as boss to employee, So I think filters are necessary. They're very natural. We use them. When I say being less filtered today, I mean specifically when it comes to being dishonest about not wanting to do things or being honest about my intentions behind things, or being honest about how I feel about things with certain situations, because I've been known, if somebody asks me to do something, and I don't want to do it, I will have to find some kind of noble, heroic reason why I can't do it or why I don't want to go, because I feel bad, quote unquote, I feel bad, right? And so, I've thought about honesty a lot this past couple weeks, just because the nature of what I've been looking at recently with Kris's Instagram live, and also some guided journal stuff I've been working on. That I'm working through I work through the things that I write about. So I'm working through things that I talked about as well in the guided journal. And there is a oh, what do you call it? A chapter. It's a chapter on honesty and what it means to be honest. And so that's one of the chapters that are probably the most active right now in my life. It's called Space. And so there's a question in Space that I ask where it's, can you lie to someone you say you love? And I will not get into it because I talked about it a lot on Instagram Live last week, so please go watch that. But all I will say is that as I reassess what it means to love people well and love myself well, I realize that honesty plays a big role in the ways that I haven't really been fully loving to people around me and myself, right? And I think that if I can somehow read someone's mind and figure out who I need to be the person that they want to see, or be the person that they need to see deserves a break from not going to something, then I'll feel better about the relationship. And really, I'm just protecting my own insecurities about our relationship. And so what I'm trying to say is that I think by being filtered sometimes, I'm doing everybody a favor, when really I'm just putting that weight on myself, because I don't want the full weight of my honesty in my friendship sometimes. And that's not okay. And so I need to practice being honest more and having less filters in terms of, if someone asks how I feel about something, just being honest about it. And there are situations where you would want to be more cautious, obviously, but I mean the general day-to-day relationships you have, try being less filtered, because at the end of the day, you breathe easier. And you think that but because I think we don't know what it feels like to be honest, we fear what we don't know. And so I think that as I practice more honesty, it feels better to do it. And so, yeah, I guess this is really about honesty, which is a big part of my life right now. So, yeah, it's being less filtered. That's my tap out this week. Right. And so that's all I have this week. Thank you guys for listening. This is really fun. Like I said, I love Insecure. I love friendship. I love the mental health. And so this was just perfect to do right now. If you guys want to watch Insecure, it's out on Sundays. Please watch it. It's beautiful. Please go back and rewatch it if you haven't. I need to go do that myself. But this series is timeless. You could watch this 10 years from now and it would still feel like it's really going to be something special as the years go by, because it's just such a quintessential Black television that is just so good, and I am in love. And yes. So if you guys want to sign up for my newsletter, I have a newsletter that I release every other week. On the off weeks that I don't release a podcast episode, you can find that in the bio of this podcast description, whatever you want to call it. I do a private little, I almost said studio vlog, but it's not a studio vlog because there's no art. It's me on the floor talking and doing more personal stuff that I talk about, recapping things and updating people as I need to. Also, Animal Crossing content is all up in there. We're getting the Animal Crossing update on the 5th of November, so y'all know I'm happy. So look forward to more Animal Crossing content in the newsletter. Also, if you guys want the guided journal, like I mentioned, that will be in the description. Small business shout out to a small business you want to promote, please do email me at heartofshama@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram or Twitter at JessAlexToday. You can follow me there as well. If you guys have Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show 5 stars. Helps a ton. I've seen some ratings, and I appreciate that. For those that have done it, I don't say thank you for the ratings, but I always ask for them. So thank you for the ratings. If you have rated, I really appreciate it. Yes, the inbox is open as always with the email I just mentioned. It'll be in the description. My website is also down there. If you want the first chapter of the guided journal, you can find it there as well. So you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, like I said, Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, all the places. This was great. And I'll see you guys later.